Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today it is cold. It is really cold. Yesterday or last night it was single digits. I think it was like 8 or 9 degrees. Negative 10 wind chill, which for Tennessee is really cold. Up north, Minnesota, places like that, you guys see it all the time. So you don't need to mention that in the comments. I already know. But this is pretty cold. I was letting my faucet run and in here in the garage, and as you can see, didn't end up doing much but freezing. So that's just to illustrate how cold it is. And I got a lot of comments recently asking viewers asking me to do a video on how to dress properly in cold weather, which, you know, for me, I take for granted because I've learned it over years of working and fishing in some very cold locations, and also snowboarding. I used to be a snowboard instructor for a very short period of time, and I love snowboarding, I love skiing, all that stuff. But I work in Alaska. We've got a place in Connecticut that gets really cold. I've Northern California was really cold, and of course, being on the slopes, that's the environment that we're talking about. Real cold, snowy conditions, icy conditions. But just fishing in general, I would say being out and fishing is probably where I get the coldest. And, you know, it seemed like in the early days, all I did was just layer up, just put a bunch of layers on, and that was my insulation. But over the years, I've figured out how to minimize the bulk and really stay warm even when it's wet outside. So let's talk about the system that I have and some of the suggestions I have for you guys on how to stay warm and dry when it's wet and cold out. So let's get started. All right, guys, so like I said, I have a lot of experience in a bunch of different inclement weather. And honestly, of all the activities that I do out there in the cold, you would think that skiing and snowboarding would be where I get the coldest. That is just not the case. Fishing is generally when I get the coldest. When I'm out on the bass boat and it's maybe 30 degrees out, but it's blowing, that is when it just cuts to the core. So it's really important to dress appropriately. And the number one rule that I want to just hammer home to you guys in this video is that cotton is the worst enemy that you've got in the cold, especially cold, wet environments, which inevitably when you're cold and you layer up and you're somewhat active, you're going to perspire. And even if it's not raining, you can soak your clothing, and cotton is just not going to insulate well once it's wet. It's just not a good insulation material. So what you're gonna wanna focus on is synthetic materials like polyester or acrylics, and also you want to focus on wool. Wool is a standby for cold weather layering for pretty much everyone in the world. Wool is just awesome. So a good set of wool clothing is going to do you very, very well in the cold. And the reason why is because wool tends to insulate and keep you warm even when it gets wet. It just keeps on insulating, and so wool is a really, really good material. Merino wool is something that I do use a lot for, especially my socks. Socks are really important, and also things like, my fleeces, some of my mid-layer stuff as well. All right, so wool and some synthetic materials like polyester, those are going to be really good. Like this jacket right here, this is a Sims Extreme insulated hoodie. This one is polyester, material as far as the main build, but also polyester fibers as the insulation, and it is perfect for cold weather environments and even a little bit of wet. So that is the main thing. The material means everything when it comes to cold, wet environments, or just cold environments in general. So let's start from your feet and work our way up. And everything that I'm going to be talking about in this video, I'm going to be putting links in the description below for different options that I suggest for each of these items, from socks to boots to hats, whatever it is. We're going to send links in the description below. So if you're interested in anything I'm talking about, go to those links, use those. So first off, let's start with our feet. Your feet are super important. Your extremities, your hands, your feet, those are areas where you're going to lose a lot of heat if you're not careful. So a good pair of wool socks is what I suggest. Really thick wool socks. If it's really cold outside, you want to make sure that you're wearing a good pair of thick socks. Even sometimes you want to bulk up and do 2 pairs of socks. And that's something that, you know, the rest of this video, I'm going to be discussing how to not bulk up, but actually reduce the amount of material that you're wearing while still staying warm. But when it comes to your feet, you don't want any air circulating in your shoes. So it's really important to bulk up in those situations, especially if you're using rubber boots like I'm going to show you. So big, long tube socks that are made of wool, or, you know, some of the synthetic material are going to be key, but I really suggest wool or a wool blend. All right, so the next thing is your footwear. Now, the rest of the year, I'm a big fan of flip-flops. Let me tell you, I'm a flip-flop guy. I've got a sandal tan like no other for the entire year. In fact, I still have it right now sitting here. It's getting a little bit pale, but it's there. But when it comes to wintertime, when it's really cold, wearing waterproof shoes, and especially waterproof boots, are gonna be very important. And I always wear at least a mid-sized, I always wear a mid-sized boot. So this right here is the Simms Challenger 7-inch boot. This is a rubber boot. Honestly, I'm gonna give you an honest take on how I felt about these boots when I first got them. When I got these boots, I wasn't that impressed with them. They were a little bit, you know, the material was a little bit harder. I thought that they'd be uncomfortable. But after wearing them for the last 6 months, I have fallen in love with these boots, and they are my go-to. So yeah, the material is like, because I'm used to like Extra Toughs. Extra Toughs are kind of a rubber-coated neoprene material. So yeah, Simms does use a pretty hefty rubber material. So it's a little bit, you know, stiff feeling when you first feel it. But when you put these on, the neoprene lining that they have, and you can see the neoprene they have here, and this right here, whatever they call this part of the boot, the cuff or whatever, this really does hug your calf very well. So it doesn't allow any of that insulated air, you know, out, or cold air in. So that's a really good function or feature. And it also makes it so it's not like just an open space when it's raining for rain to get in there too. So it's actually very comfortable. I love these boots, and they've become my go-tos. But the whole point is, no matter what boot you get, having a waterproof boot is super important, and it's really hard to do that without getting a rubber boot. You know, there's a lot of different leather boots out there and hiking boots that claim to be waterproof, but when you really get, you know, you walk out to the, you know, to take your boat off the trailer or something like that, they do end up getting a little bit of water in them sometimes. But rubber boots just don't do that until they start falling apart after years of use. But I highly suggest these Challengers. They're awesome. The one thing about rubber boots that I will say is the biggest challenge is that if you don't have exactly the right size fit of rubber boot, it can allow air circulation in the boot. And that's really a bad thing. You want to make sure that you don't have any space in here, you know, in between your feet and the material, because rubber really doesn't do a good job of you know, insulating from, you know, the cold. You want to make sure that you've got plenty of sock to fill your boot. You know, you don't want it to be uncomfortable, but you want that sock to fill all the spaces in your boot when it comes to rubber, you know, rubber boots. So that's my take on that. Obviously, if it's like a really, really super rainy day, something that has a longer, that's a taller boot, okay, that's going to be really good. Something like a good pair of Extra Toughs, those are going to suit you very well. Again, socks are a big part of the staying warm portion, but staying dry is super important. All right, so let's move on up. The next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get a good pair of suitable long johns. Usually you're talking about polyester or some type of a nylon material that's just going to be pretty skin tight, but it's going to do wonders for keeping you warm. So that base layer is very important, and there's a lot of different base layers that are made for different kind of cold. So Simms, is a company I started working with this year. They do a really good job with their different, base layer or just cold weather layering in general, because they started off with waders, for fly fishing in cold environments. And so they've got a lot of different layering options. They got some great socks. I don't have any of their socks here. I've got several pairs, but I don't know exactly where they went. I got probably 3 dozen pairs of wool socks, but they make everything from wool socks to really good light, mid, and heavyweight base layers, mid layers, all that different stuff that are designed for cold weather, especially for wading, but for bass fishing too. They're very, very relevant in that space as well. So I'll be putting some of the different options that I suggest for different types of cold in the description below when it comes to Simms underwear. But good pair of long johns, very important. And then what you put on top of those long johns is also very important. I actually, when I'm layering pretty thick, I like to wear some sort of synthetic material type of sweatpant type thing. So some kind of high performance sweatpant that has the stretchy, waist. I don't like something that has a lot of buckles, buttons, zippers, and all that stuff. When nature calls, I want to just have that elastic band to have to deal with. So I have a bunch of different, elastic waist kind of fleece lined pants that I wear that are really, really good. Again, Simms makes several that are very, very good. But just make sure that it's not made of cotton. That's a good thing. If you are going to wear like regular pants, if it's a day where it's just cold and it's not actually like raining or something like that, there's plenty of good pants out there that are fleece lined. So look for those pants to be kind of your top layer on top of your long underwear. But long underwear is going to go a long way, and it's going to help you reduce the bulk and stay warmer overall. All right, so let's move up. And the same thing goes for your torso. You want a good pair of long underwear, tops for your first base layer. You want something that is, again, a polyester or something like that, and is as thin as you can go for the temperatures that you're dealing with. And sometimes that just means you have to go to heavyweight, a really, really relatively thick base layer as your base. If you're ice fishing or something like that, you need something that really is suitable for that. But for most of my bass fishing, just a lightweight, something around the freezing point rated long underwear top is going to work really, really well. Then from there, this is when things get really, really important when it comes to layering for bass fishing, especially because you want a lot of range of motion. Is like in the beginning, I always just would like put on multiple sweatshirts. I put on multiple sweatshirts and then I put on a jacket, and I'm just all bulky, and like my range of motion just sucks. And so I found that it was really important to really be more efficient with my clothing choices when it came to the layering. And so what I found was I from my base layer, I go to a good, moderate weight mid-layer fleece, a non-hooded fleece. So this right here is a pretty generic little fleece. I wear it hunting, I wear it fishing. This is a really good mid-layer, okay? And again, I've got some other options from Simms in the description below, but a mid-layer fleece is really, really important. And then on top of that, and the reason I don't want a hood is because I'm gonna have something over all of this that usually has a hood, and I don't want 2 hoods. That's the last thing I want. I just want 1 hood to have to put up and not have that bulkiness in the back that's prohibiting my main shell hood from going up. So a non-hooded fleece as my mid layer is really good. And then your best friend when it comes to your torso, keeping your torso warm, is a vest, okay? An insulated vest. Now this is something that really, honestly, the last 3 years I've started to recognize, you know, because I didn't wear enough vests in my cold weather layering in the past. And I started to realize, like, one of the things I hated about cold weather is the fact that my range of motion in my arms wasn't very good. And so going to a vest was like the best thing ever. So getting a good insulated vest, this one's kind of like a lightweight insulation. This one's really good for, you know, those moderately cold days, those 40-degree days sort of thing. You know, in conjunction with your base layer, your mid layer, and then you put this on, and this will really do a lot for keeping you warm as far as your core, which is really super important. All right, so using a good vest, and I've got a lot of different weights of vests. Like I've got one that goes up to a really, really thick insulated puffy vest that is best for the really, really cold days. So that is really important. And then on top of that, depending on the weather, the precipitation or the lack thereof, that's when I choose my last layer. So usually if it's really cold, I like to have some type of you know, insulated puff jacket like this. This is, again, the Extreme jacket from Sims. It's got a hoodie on it. It's made of polyester. It's got polyester fibers. It makes you really, really warm, but it's also not very thick. It's not very dense. And honestly, I love the cuffs. The cuffs are one of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to bass fishing with a puff jacket. And these are just right. They're not like super wide. They're not super tight, and they're just right for working a bait, especially like a jerk bait on the water. So I feel like this is a really comfortable jacket, and it's got a little bit of a waterproof feature to it. So it's not waterproof. It's like water resistant, but they have this coating on it that makes the water just bead off. So if it does lightly mist a little bit, you're going to be just fine in this jacket. So a good puffer jacket, good heavy insulation jacket for your upper layer in conjunction with your vest that's appropriately chosen, and then your mid layer and your base layer, you're going to be as warm as possible. All right, so when it gets really wet and cold out there, like it's raining or it's snowing or sleeting, whatever it's doing, that's when you want to have a good rain suit to put on, because staying dry is one of the biggest keys to staying warm and also blocking the wind. Okay, and that's one thing that a lot of these do, like this Extreme, insulated hoodie. This does really well at blocking the wind as well. So your outer layer does need to block a lot of wind. This right here is a suit that I just started wearing. This is the Pro Dry suit from Sims, which is highly regarded as, and I've got the bibs as well, highly regarded as one of the best, if not the best, set of rain gear out there that is non-rubber. So this set, I've worn it a couple times now, really love it. It's 3 layers of Gore-Tex. But one of the most important things when it comes to using these rain suits is honestly, unless you're living up north, I don't like to get the insulated versions of these rain suits, because I'm already doing all the insulation work below with my base layer, my mid layer, and my vest. But one thing, because these are very thin, as good as this material is, and as thick as it is for waterproofing, it's not very thick at all as far as insulation. So I will usually upsize the thickness of my vest up to about maximum if it's cold outside, because there's just not a lot of insulation with a regular like Pro Dry rain suit, or just any uninsulated rain suit that you're going to see on the market. So make sure that your vest is kind of taking the hit for the insulation needs of the day. And you'll be surprised at how little you'll feel cold on your arms, even though you don't have as much insulation on your arms. the fact that you've got that base layer and that mid layer is going to really keep you warm. Now, your hands are a different thing altogether. I forgot the gloves. I'm going to show you the gloves real quick that I like. All right, so these right here are the gloves that I end up liking for keeping my hands warm and dry. I've gone with a lot of different types of gloves over the years, a lot of different materials. I've done the insulated ones. I've done wool ones, done all of them. But of all the gloves that I have ever used for fishing, where I can still maintain dexterity but keep my hands warm and dry, neoprene gloves like these Sims, I think these are also the Extreme line. These are awesome. These are the best. They give you really good range of motion. They're very thin, or relatively thin. They're still, pretty dense, but you can grip your bait caster, your spinning rod. You can even tie your baits a lot easier than, say, an insulated, Gore-Tex pair of gloves. So I really am a big believer in the neoprene gloves on the market. And I like these from Sims a lot because they've got a good grip. They're just the right thickness to keep you really, really warm and really dry. And just like with everything Sims makes, very high quality. So anyways, the next thing that you're going to want to do going up to your neck and your head is make sure that you're wearing a good gaiter. If it's really windy, really cold, a good warm gaiter is going to do very, very well. So something like this is like one of those buffs that is made for cold weather, really keeping your neck warm, which is really important. And then as far as the face, it's really thin material, and it's just really just keeping the wind off of your face. So blocking that wind is going to make all the difference. And then put a good beanie on, or most of the time I still wear a ball cap, to be honest with you. If you have this on, you can wear a cap and you're going to be just fine for most situations. But really cold situations, a nice beanie is going to do you great. All right, guys, that's pretty much it. I know this was a long video for a topic that I feel like a lot of people feel like they have a handle on. But if you don't have a lot of experience in the cold, you tend to think that all you have to do is just layer. Because everybody just throws out the layering, terminology, but they don't really explain how to layer and reduce the bulk, which if you're too bulked up, it's just going to be an uncomfortable fishing experience throughout the day. So anyways, guys, let me know your thoughts on this topic. Did I hit the nail on the head when it comes to layering for the wintertime and for cold and wet conditions? I want to know what your thoughts are. And again, any of the products that I talked about in this video, or some that I didn't talk about, but I highly recommend for cold weather layering, check out the links that I have in the description below. I think that this is going to help you be more efficient at staying warm on the water. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. I'm going to see you out on the water, not freezing our tails off. Trust the process, folks. See you out there.